Okay, welcome everybody to the virtual meeting of the City of Gig Harbor DRB, July 22nd, 2021. Let's start with a call to order. I'll begin. Brett Marlowe DeSantis.
Don Ashlock.
Nels Peterson.
Marlene Drucker.
Kim Mahoney, staff.
Michelle Thomas, staff.
George Flanagan, staff.
Trent Ward, staff.
Okay, is that everybody for today? Michelle?
For the first project, yes, I believe the second project had a couple people on.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start. Let's start with the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion from anyone? We're dealing with the dates of 5/27/21, 6/10/21, and 7/8/21. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
Thank you, John. A second? Okay, well then I'll second it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well then we'll go ahead and accept those minutes. We have two projects on the agenda today, the sewer lift station number 12 and the Burnham Drive apartment. What we have is an open public meeting. Public comment will be open after each presentation and before DRB discussion. Is there any reason a DRB member would need to recuse themselves from either of these projects? Is there anyone of the project or in the public that would see a reason for any of the DRB members to recuse themselves from these projects? Okay, then I guess we're ready to get rolling. Can we have an introduction to the first project, which is the sewer lift station, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. We're here tonight for the DRB's consideration of a requested design alternative and design exception by the Gig Harbor Public Works Department for proposed improvements to sewer lift station number 12. The applicant's improvements include the demolition of the existing lift station and construction of a new pump station building to house the appurtenances necessary for the operation of the lift station. Lift station 12 is located at 11502 Burnham Drive at the southwest corner where Burnham meets Woodhill Drive. The site, although in the R1 zone, has been developed with the existing utility use since 1992 and is surrounded by a mix of vacant residential parcels and both residentially and commercially developed lots. The site is also bordered to the west by McCormick Creek, but the proposed improvements will have no impact on the critical area. The applicant proposes redevelopment of the site with a modest sized building just large enough to house the equipment necessary for the functional utility purposes at approximately 800 square feet. To maintain this modest functional building size, the applicant intends to avoid unnecessary increases in the building's size or modulation and is therefore requesting a design exception from the long, low wall plane standard set forth in Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1799-380A. Specifically, the structure's eastern facade measures 7.2 feet longer than is allowed to prescriptively conform with the design manual's long, low wall plane standard. To design a conforming design solution to this inconsistency would require either an increase in the building's height or the incorporation of a new wall plane offset by 6 feet. The applicant has prepared a narrative which speaks to its intent to improve the design and aesthetic appeal of the current structure while maintaining the simplicity of the utilitarian structure. The applicants also proposed a design alternative to the roofing material standard set forth in Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1799-430A. This code provision allows for non-residential development to incorporate cedar shingles, asphalt shingles, tile slate, and standing seam metal roofs. As an alternative, the applicant proposes to roof the new structure with metal shingles for their aesthetic similarity to prescriptively allowed roof materials with the added benefit of longevity and lack of maintenance. Based on the aesthetic and functional appeal of the product, the applicant has spoken to its consistency with the intent of the design manual provision and its superiority in the design solution. Please see Exhibit A for the applicant's narrative discussing tonight's items. Staff has reviewed the requested design exception against the criteria of approval codified in 1798-060 and reviewed the design alternative against the criteria for approval codified in Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1798-055A and finds the proposal consistent with all criteria. The analysis of the review, along with suggested findings and recommendations, are included in Section 7 of my staff report. This project has been appropriately noticed and no comments were received in response to the notice. This concludes my introduction of the project. I welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you, Kim. Does any of the DRB members have questions of Kim before we hand the project over to the applicant? Okay, I'm gonna, oh, Nels, do you have one?
No, I'm good. I'm good with.
Okay. Okay, you sound a little broken up. I'll take that as an okay. Okay, who would like to present this project?
Good evening. My name is George Flanagan. I'm the construction supervisor for the city of Gig Harbor. I will be presenting along with Trent Ward, city engineer, and Daryl Winans, who is a wastewater treatment plant supervisor who just joined us. Can everybody hear me okay? I've been having some computer issues today.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Thank you for letting us come before you today. What I'd like to do, start off with, is showing a vicinity map of where this building is located here. I'm going to try to do some screen sharing and see if I can mess this up. Can you guys see the vicinity map that I have up? No. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. We're getting somewhere. So Lift Station 12 is located at the intersection of Woodhill Drive and Burnham Drive, just across the street from the old Keller Williams Realty office. You can see here, here's the big roundabout at Highway 16 and Borgen Boulevard. And across the way is the little roundabout off of Burnham Drive. And this is the location of the existing facility. This is the existing building as it stands today, and the city is going to be doing a full restoration of this building and the grounds itself. Lift Station 12 was built in 1992, and it serves the Gig Harbor North vicinity of the Kennerwood Boulevard and the hospital and Purdy and Peninsula High School. And it constitutes the third largest lift station that we have in terms of gallons per day that go to the sewer plant. City Council has directed us to rehab this facility this year as part of the budget. And we are now in about 90% design, ready to go to bid on this project, pending today's outcome of the design review board. The new building itself that we're going to be putting in is, as Kim mentioned, it's about 800 square feet, give or take. This is the site plan that we have drawn up at this point. Burnham Drive is located right here to the east of the site, and is the prominent facade of the building is on this plane right here. Woodhill Drive is located right here to the north. And the site itself is surrounded by McCormick Creek that comes down on the backside on the west side of the property here. The property itself is about 0.57 acres in size. The new building, I'm going to go back to the slide real quick. The new building will actually sit in the same footprint as the existing building that will be demolished. And the existing building at this point is about 300 square feet. The new building is going to house all the components, equipment, electrical needs for this lift station. There's going to be an electrical room here, which houses all the pump controls. We're going to have an odor control equipment that's going to be in this portion of the building here. There is going to be a potable water, we call it an air gap skid. It's equipment to protect the public water from the processed water of this lift station. And then this area here will house the piping and the valving required to operate this station, and also the backup diesel pump for emergency use if the wet well pumps go out or we lose power to the site. When considering design for this project, these buildings are really strictly utilitarian in nature, and you probably have noticed around some of the other jurisdictions, they can be pretty benign, pretty ugly in a sense. What we decided to do was to kind of look around the adjacent neighborhood and pull some design elements from the neighboring commercial buildings there and incorporate them into this building to kind of help it blend in and look a little bit better than is typical. This is the elevation views that we currently have designed for this building. I'm going to start with the east view. This is the view that faces Burnham Drive that you will see the prominent facade of the building. The length of the new building is roughly 32 feet long, and then the width is roughly 24 feet wide with 10-foot walls. And we are going to incorporate into this facade. It's going to be a CMU brick structure, but then we're going to clad the building itself with fiber cement lap siding and stone veneer wainscot up to about 3 feet in elevation. This view here is the view that faces Woodhill Drive. So when you come to the intersection of Woodhill and Burnham, this is the end of the building that you'll look at. We have doors, man doors here into the electrical room, and a larger man door here to get the pumping equipment in and out of the building if need be. This view, the west view that we're looking at in this area here, is the view that faces the back of McCormick Creek and is not really visible from anywhere on the street. Same thing with the south view, which is this end of the building. It faces the wetlands and vegetated property next door, and is also, you can't see it from the roadway. We've kind of put together a little bit of an artist's rendering of what we see the building looking like when it's complete. Please forgive me, these right here are actually hatches for the vaults that will be underground. The picture that we chose, we couldn't get rid of those details. So it's gonna look like this in the end. We're gonna have, like I said, the cement fiber lap siding, the cultured stone wainscot for architectural embellishments, and then the metal roofing that is going to mimic cedar shake or the composition shingles of the surrounding area. So this is the Woodhill Drive view, and then this will be the view from Burnham on the prominent facade. When considering all the design elements on this, like I said, we took into account the neighboring buildings in the area. And as you can see, this building here is what we kind of mimicked our lift station design after. It's got stone facade and the lower portions, the fiber cement lap siding boards on the upper part. And this picture is not real great at showing, but it's got an architectural style composition shingle roof. This is the old Keller Williams real estate office building. And similarly, it's got the same type of siding and also the architectural comp roof on it. So the first thing I think I'd like to talk about is the design alternative for the metal roofing itself. As Kim stated in the Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1799-430, The metal roofing, the roofing that is required by the code is to be either cedar shingle, architectural grade asphalt shingles, tile, slate, or standing metal seam roof. And typically on our structures, we do use the standing metal seam roofing for these type of buildings, our pump stations, our well pump houses, because it allows for very low maintenance, very good durability. In this particular situation, though, we wanted to kind of use the embellishments from the neighboring buildings and incorporate it into this structure. And so we have chosen for consideration this product here. It's the DuraShake XD metal roofing. It is metal, which is very durable, like I mentioned, and what the wastewater treatment plant staff require on these buildings to help with maintenance, to keep from having to clean the thing daily or monthly, and the growth of moss and such on. But this product itself really looks like the cedar shingles or composition shingles that's required of the code. I know you guys have this exhibit E. I don't know if you want to look through any of these. I'll just kind of scan through these photos. We have not yet picked a color for this building, but it will be one of these four. If this is allowed, we are giving the contractor the option to submit to us during construction for approval of the colors that we're going to be picking for the color scheme for the building. And with that, is there any questions in regards to the metal roof alternative request?
So I inspect roofs on a daily basis, and this style of roof is one roof that I will not come close to even beginning to walk on. Main reason is it is a roof you could heavily damage by walking on it in any sort of way. Ones that are existing, I see damage all the time. I understand why you want to do it to mimic the other buildings and mimic the shake, and maintenance is true, but if anybody needs to get up on that roof, it will be dented and it will be damaged. And once it's damaged, it is, to put bluntly, extremely ugly. I personally would rather see the standard metal roof that you were talking about beforehand. Just because I know the maintenance, even though you say no maintenance on this, there is maintenance. And if somebody doesn't know what they're doing walking on it, they heavily damage it.
Daryl, do you want to speak to that since your crew will be the one that's up
Yeah,
there?
I would like to speak to that. And for safety reasons, we try not to get on any of our roofs. We have a 56-foot telehandler rough terrain forklift that we have a L&I approved man basket on that we use to clean all of our roofs here at the treatment plant. We've got some extremely high, the standing seam roofing, and that stuff is extremely slick also. And when you're up there on moss or anything that's growing on it. So we do have tie-offs at the top when we have to get on it, but that's only because we can't access it with a telehandler. This roof will be accessible from all angles and all sides, so my men will not be getting on the roof, period, or women, and they will be in the basket and work from the basket. So the damage to the roof should never occur. There's no reason for us to get up on there unless for some reason the tree limb falls on it, through it, or whatever, and then we're in for a little bit more extensive repair. But I understand your point, and I agree with you, sir, that about getting on that, and it can be easily damaged. But that should not be an issue with us because we do not intend to be on that roof at all.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my other point on it too. Is I know this area is pretty heavily treed, and if a branch hits it, it could damage it also. I know it could do it on a flat metal roof also, but not to the extent that this style would do. I just have concerns on that, and I'd be curious to see what other board members I think on that too. On the building itself, I flat out amazing. I mean, the getting rid of the masonry block and doing what you're doing in the area where there really isn't any other buildings close by, I think it's beautiful, truthfully. The roof's the only thing I really have questions on.
Well, this is Nels. I agree with just the functionality of, but I kind of come from it that the standing seam, I have no qualms with using just standard standing seam metal roofing in this application. I mean, I note the gesture to look like the other ones, but you kind of start drawing the line of, it is faux, wood shake look. So if it was me, I would just go with probably the more cost effective and more tried and true standing seam metal roofing on the building. The building's beautiful. And I don't think that the normal standing seam roof that you use elsewhere on your pump stations will be a detriment to the building. So.
George, do you have more of a presentation?
No, that's it on the metal roof part.
Okay, well, we haven't really opened it up to full DRB yet. So if you want to finish your presentation, then I'll open up to public comment.
All right, excellent. The second request we have tonight is an exception. It's for the long low wall plane, Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1799 380A. This building, I'm going to pull up those views again real quick. Please bear with me. As I stated earlier, and as Ms. Mahoney stated, this building is purely utilitarian. We will not have any public coming on the site. This building will not be inhabited in any way other than by city maintenance staff itself. When we build these structures for utility purposes, the intent is always to make it as most efficient and I guess discreet and non-obtrusive as possible to allow for the staff to get in it and do the maintenance they need to do, to hold the equipment that we need and keep it to a minimum size, which reduces maintenance costs, construction costs, and quite frankly, the public and the elected officials of Gig Harbor kind of want these buildings to blend in and disappear. And so we try really hard to accommodate that. And in this particular situation, we do understand that the long, low wall plane is a factor, but we feel that because of the use of this building, the size of the building also too, it's very small in nature. It's not a big box type store. So we feel that that this exception should be granted based on that. We've also mitigated a few other things besides the facade of the building to make it look more appealing. We're also going to be pulling down the overhead power that crosses Burnham Drive from the Realty One side of the property, and undergrounding that too to also help make it more aesthetically appealing and help it kind of disappear into oblivion there for a utility building itself. Daryl or Trent, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this on this topic?
No, I think you pretty well expressed the Public Works Department's intent here, and just in terms of this low long wall plane matter, like George has described, we've tried to implement some what we feel are some very nice architectural features that wouldn't normally be put into a utility building like this, but we think it's the right thing to do in the neighborhood and to help this building not stick out like a sore thumb and to fit in and blend in as well as we can.
I just want to mention too that all the other design requirements will be incorporated in this building. You may notice that there are some windows that we're putting in on this east elevation and also on the north elevation. That's part of our design code. We're going to be using the earth tone color palette that's required. So really the only deviation to this is this long low wall plane. And to make this building 3 foot higher just doesn't seem practical for the purpose of this use of this facility. So with that said, I'm kind of done with my presentation at this point, and we're willing to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead, Michelle, and open it up to public comment.
We do not have any attendees.
Okay, well, that solves that issue. Let's move right along and open it up to DRB discussion. I know some discussion already began. I would like to frame it to the staff analysis to see if we meet the design exception criteria. So if my fellow board members would like to address whether this meets the criteria, that would be excellent.
Can I ask a question? Or actually, I have two questions.
Please go for it.
The three windows that we see on the elevation, what purpose do they serve?
Kim, you may have to help me with this one. I know that the window on the north elevation here, that is more of a safety issue for the electrical building, the electrical room, so that we can have line of sight from the inside the building to the wet well hatched, where we may have people working in that area. Now, the other two windows on the east elevation, I believe there's a requirement, Kim, please correct me if I'm wrong, or actually maybe you can expound on that a little.
Chair, do you mind if I address
Please
Marlon's
go.
question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, all prominent facades on non-residential development that are not exempted by the IBE are required to provide at least 20 to 25% of glazing. And so the windows that you see are the applicant's address of that criteria.
Sorry, where's this criteria coming from?
It's in the design manual in
Oh,
1799
it's coming from
14B.
design. And this IBE that you're referencing is?
It's the industrial building exemption, which this
Okay.
building is not subject to.
Okay. All right. So there's no way we could waive those, or the applicant would have to ask for that.
Correct. They'd have to ask for a design exception from that standard.
Okay. So this is an 800 square foot structure that's on a half acre. Am I understanding that?
Correct.
And so what is I'm sorry, the site is one you pass by without even noticing, which I guess is good. What kind of landscaping is there now? And are there any plans for any landscaping improvements?
Currently, there is no landscaping. It's bordered by two paved roads. There's a gravel laydown area in front of the building where the wet well, the dry well, and all the utility vault hatches are located. And currently in this design, we are not going to be doing any landscaping for that property. And I believe we were not required to through the planning review process.
Okay, well, that's all I had for questions. I guess for discussion, I will say in terms of your metal roof, what you're presenting is inoffensive. I personally would be ready to approve it. And I also will agree with what Nelson John said, that actually if you wanted to do just a more industrial looking standing seam roof, I think I would be okay with that too on this kind of building. I don't think that being so matchy with the buildings next to it in this case is really that important. So that would be my opinion. And I guess we will see if there's agreement there. In terms of the low slung wall being 3 feet higher, I think I also agree with your findings that it makes no sense to make this 3 feet higher just to agree with, what it says in the code. So I would be willing to, again, just me personally, I would say, yeah, I would grant that exception. I will say, looking at the outside structure, I guess I'm skeptical whether your stone wainscoting is actually adding that much to the design. To my eye, it doesn't, it seems like a wallpaper type thing. And again, I should go back to your rendering, but Um, No, there's your existing, but you know, it's, it almost, to me, I would be just as happy if you covered the whole thing with the plank, you know, the cedar looking planking. And again, I don't know if I'm gonna have agreement on that with the rest of the board, but that would be my opinion.
Thank you, Marlene. I know John and Els, you spoke before, but here's another opportunity.
So my only other question, I like the side of the building. I actually like the wainscoting going around. No matter what, it's a heck of an improvement, like I said earlier on. On the north elevation, there is a louvered vent that's kind of off-centered a little bit. Sounds weird, but my eye keeps on getting drawn to it just because I'm a very organized person. Is there a way to be able to make that more centered on the building or not?
I believe that is either the exhaust or the intake for the diesel backup pump that we're going to be having in that part of the building. And the configuration of the wall for the electrical room forces us to move that louver over a little bit to that location. I could inquire with our design engineers to see if we could center that a little bit more, but that's my guess, is that it cannot be because of the interior wall for the electrical room.
Yeah, that seems logical to me. Just make sure that when paint scheme and stuff, it more blends in versus stands out. I wouldn't accent it at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I believe we were struggling with that vent to get it with the ductwork and everything interiorly with the room height and so forth to get it where it even is now. So I think we're pretty well stuck with the location there, but we can try to hide it as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, I've parked in that parking lot many times writing reports. So like I said, it would be a much better place for me to sit when I'm working on my reports than it is now. I'm assuming some Marlene's comment on that landscaping. I understand that area doesn't really go to landscaping much at all, but are you guys going to re-gravel that area and kind of clean it up a little bit after construction too? So there's a lot of big potholes and water wells basically now as it stands.
Yes, we will. Unfortunately, there's really not much room for landscaping there either. For, you know, there could be a bush here and there, but it's mainly access. There is more hardscaping in there with hatches and so forth, and accessibility around those. So it kind of doesn't lend us much opportunity to do anything there with access on both ends or side, Wood Hill and Burnham Drive side of the structure there. So if we could, we would, but I think it would end up being trampled and run over by machinery.
Yep. No, I totally agree on that. It's just basically just clean it up when construction's done. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to be digging up quite a bit of that property around the wet wells and the other vaults. So we will be rehabbing all that gravel out there.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yep.
Nels?
No, I think, I mean, I still stand where the building looks just fine how it is. I would just go with a standard standing seam roof on it. Yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't deviate from what you know works and what you know you have in your inventory and maintenance, you know, your protocols of what you already deal with on your existing buildings. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Nels. Well, I have a little experience with lift stations. And this is no welcome plaza, but I think you guys made it as pretty as you could for the area it's in. It's definitely a utilitarian building. There's no reason to make it bigger than it needs to be. I would be behind accepting the design exception, and I would like to know if the rest of my board members want to say yes or make a motion.
Go ahead, make the motion. There, I'm bouncing it back at you.
No. Well, trying to lead the meeting, I usually try to hand off the motion. There is a recommendation by staff in the staff report if anyone would like to officially read it, or I can if no one volunteers.
I'm actually trying to scroll to that right now, so hang on for a sec. So I will like to make a motion, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. Findings, the DRB finds the proposed design exception is consistent with the criteria approval set in forth GHMC 1798-60D. Recommendation, the DRB recommends the decision maker accept the proposed design exception to the requirements set forth in GHMC 1799-380A as consistent with the new review criteria codified in GHMC Chapter 1798-60D, and accordingly recommends the decision maker approve the requested design exception, but would like to look at the standing seam metal roof versus the metal shingles instead.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw this at Kim before I take this out for a second, because I don't want I want a motion that can stand for you guys. Will that work?
Well, it really blends the two items in a way that isn't necessary. There's going to be a separate motion on the design alternative that's relative to the roof material. And so if John is incorporating the suggested recommendation from the staff report relative to the design exception of the long low wall plane, it sounds like it might make sense to simply incorporate it as written in the staff report and make a separate motion on the design alternative for the roof material.
Okay, John, are you cool if we accept the motion up to the but part and then we make a different recommendation on that?
Yes, I 100% am.
Okay, would anyone like to second the motion of the DRB recommends the decision maker accept the proposed design exception to the requirements, yada, yada, and the review criteria is fulfilled? Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nels. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So let's go ahead and move to the, I guess the roof comment. You want to go ahead, John?
So I'd like to make a motion that the applicant would look at installing a standard seamed roof, metal roof versus the metal shingles that they have proposed to make it consistent with other buildings in the city of this nature.
Second.
Wow, that was quick. Okay, we call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that recommendation or motion goes through. Is that cool, Kim? I see.
Point of clarity, just a quick point of clarity, the phrase used is for staff, for the applicant to consider the installation of a standing seam metal roof. I'd like to, just quick clarification, whether that is a requirement that they elected to install a standing seam metal roof, or if they were to choose to continue to move forward with the metal shingle roof style, whether that would be acceptable to the board.
That's a very good question. John, since you put that motion out there, would you like to answer?
I'm actually torn on that one, tell you the truth. I think we have the input on it. It sounds like they were primarily wanting to put that on to match neighboring buildings. I don't think that's a requirement to have it match the neighboring building. I think the standing seam would work just as good on this building. You don't need to match it. So I voiced my opinion on the shingles. So I think they can make up their minds. I'm fine with either one. I just see maintenance on the shingles.
Can I ask George? Sorry. Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, if I am totally good with the standing seam, we don't need to really have any discussion
Okay.
about it, or we don't have to disagree about it. I think we're good with it. We just, as John said, we did try to match up what was neighboring. We are totally fine with the standing seam and would accept that recommendation.
Awesome. Then let's roll with that because I think
Thank
we're
you,
all in
Chair.
favor of that. Yeah.
Yep, I
thanks
got what
for
I
that.
need.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, unless you guys want to hang around after hours, you guys are good to go. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Yep,
Bet.
thank you.
Oh, no, Kim. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying goodbye to my colleagues.
Okay.
Night.
Okay, then we're ready to bring on the second project. Okay, so Kim, are you introducing this project as well?
Yes, Chair.
Go for it.
Thank you. Okay, our second item on tonight's agenda is the Burnham Drive Apartments Design Alternative Application, which was continued to tonight's meeting at the conclusion of the June 10th, 2021 DRB meeting. The applicant proposes the development of a 78-unit apartment complex at 9411 Burnham Drive. The units would be contained in 5 apartment buildings, buildings A through E. The development also proposes a 6th structure in the interior of the site for the apartment's office and professional offices for lease. The applicant is proposing a design alternative to the requirements set forth in 1799-240C for maintaining natural topography and 1799-470C, which requires the applicant to acquire the DRB's recommendation of the design of a parking garage, which encloses more than 20 vehicles. They are here tonight with revisions to its past alternative, which the applicant believes addresses the feedback communicated by the DRB at its June 10th public meeting. At that meeting, the DRB expressed concern that the alternative design proposed related to the applicant's alternative design for maintaining natural topography is not supported by sufficient detail so as to inform the DRB of the equivalence or superiority of the alternative. Specifically, the DRB expressed concern that building E may not be incorporated into the natural topography of the site and asked for the applicant to prepare a true elevation of building E as it is visible entering the site. As it relates to the parking garage located beneath building A, the DRB expressed concern that the architectural features of building A seemed gimmicky. The DRB noted that the inclusion of a balcony above the underground garage entrance may aid in screening the garage, but that the balcony space should serve a genuine or purposeful use, perhaps offering access to the apartments on the first floor of building A. In response to this feedback, the applicant has submitted revised materials included with my staff report, my supplemental staff report as exhibits K through N. These revised materials are discussed at length on pages 3 through 4 of my supplemental staff report. In short, the applicant has made the following changes since its presentation to the DRB on June 10th. 2 residential units from building E have been removed and added to building A, the result of which supports the positioning of building E to better fit the natural topography of the site and supports the functionality of the space located directly above the underground garage beneath building A. The resulting revised design to building A has nullified the need for the previously designed wall in excess of 10 feet in height adjacent to the garage's entrance. The revised design to building E also incorporates an elevator, which connects the site's accessible route to a path which initially begins closer to the site's access off Burnham Drive than has been designed in previous renderings, eventually traversing to the 2nd floor of building E and then leading to the southern property line, wherein a lift conveys the path to users to building D and then into the interior of the site. This redesigned accessible path incorporates no walls in excess of 6 feet in height. Alternatively, the applicant has introduced an option to avoid the use of a lift in the accessible paths design by grading the path along the southern property line in a manner which complies with the accessibility requirements. This design would incorporate the need for walls in excess of 6 feet, but would avoid the use of lifts in the accessible paths design. To better incorporate building E into the site's sloping topography, the applicant has redesigned the structure and the parking area immediately north of the structure, immediately east of the structure, the result of which increases the amount of grading activity that had been previously presented to the DRB. The applicant is requesting the DRB to review and recommend approval of its alternative design to the specific requirement of 1799-240C as it relates to the relationship between grading quantities and a balanced site. Specifically, the applicant's proposing up to 14,315 cubic yards of cut material and 8,735 cubic yards of fill material, resulting in an approximate 40% difference between the amount of cut and fill material necessary for the proposed development. The applicant posits that while these grading quantities are not consistent with staff's typical regard for a balanced site, the grading plan proposed is reflective of underground stormwater infrastructure, road sections, an underground parking garage, and a redesign of the site based on feedback provided by the DRB to reconsider how well building E is incorporated into the sloping natural topography and explore additional design options related to the accessible path and the tall walls retaining it. In this manner, the applicant believes its alternative design achieves an equivalent or superior design solution. A revised site plan with conceptual renderings of the site's design are included with the supplemental staff report as Exhibit L. Staff has considered the DRB's feedback provided at the last two public meetings, and having reviewed the applicant's resultant revisions, staff finds that the applicant has adequately addressed the requests of the DRB and has proposed a design alternative consistent with the criteria for approval codified in Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1798-055A. Suggested findings and recommendations have been prepared by staff on pages 4 through 5 of the supplemental staff report, suggesting a recommendation of approval for the design alternative requested. This concludes my introduction of this continued item, and I welcome any questions from the DRB.
Thank you, Kim. Does anyone on the DRB have questions of Kim before I hand it over to the applicant? Okay, I think let's go ahead. Start with the presentation, please.
Hi, good evening. It's Stephen Bridgeford with Contour Engineering. I'm joined tonight by Jeremy Haug, the project engineer from Contour Engineering, as well as Ross Deckman from Ross Deckman and Associates, the project's architect. Will be joining us tonight to help with some questions on the architecture that the board had last time. I think Kim's thorough introduction of our project, I feel like a lot of what I have will just be redundant, so I'll try to hit just on some updates and then let Jeremy and Ross kind of fill in any of the blanks. So as we discussed, building A has been updated. We're incorporating an elevator, which will be kind of accessible immediately from the. I should probably share my screen here. I'm looking at it, so I figure everybody else is.
No.
There.
Yes.
So kind of opening up here on the kind of building elevation, and we'll kind of go through. We kind of have a lot of information that we've provided. We can kind of start kind of with a look at this building elevation, since that was a big question, and some of the updates. So you can see that window wall there will house internally the elevator structure, which will take passengers up from the ground level, the end of that pathway, which we'll look at here in a minute, up to the what's effectively the first floor, in order to get passengers kind of up into the site from the road. And then showing some the foundations, finished floor has been dropped down. And as Kim mentioned, kind of 2 units from the other face of the building have been removed from this building in order to help the building kind of settle down into the property, where before it was up in the air quite a bit. Let's go into where we can see a little bit more of the grading and how the path is moved a lot closer to the kind of main entrance, where before, if you remember, it was straddling the property line and kind of a secondary location. So path now would come up from the road. There will have to be some switchbacks added. And then you're looking at regrading, so then they'll still enter through the building, and then still kind of come along the south line and enter into building D in order to get access up into the main site, from Burnham, with the kind of significant grade change from the upper portion of the site to the lower portion of the site. So we do have a couple options. We were able to, with the changing of building A, we're able to get the grades down where walls won't be required along here above 6 feet, but we would still require a lift. I think that lift is around 5 feet. But I don't think anybody really wants the addition of lifts. So there would be an option to regrade this path, kind of starting from the entrance to building E all the way to building D in order to eliminate that lift, but it'll require some 10-foot walls here facing the Eagles property, so be visible from the Eagles property in this area. And I think that down, kind of along the whole I guess the 10-foot walls are down closer to building E in in this
Correct.
area down here. And that would be, I think that would be, you know, the ideal solution. It eliminates the lifts, which, you know, kind of eliminates that, you know, there's just one, you know, feature, the elevator that would need maintenance. And since that elevator is, you know, fully enclosed within the structure, not out in the elements, you know, the perception would be that maintenance would be easier, and with, you're not exposed to the elements, you're yeah, it would just be, maintenance would be somewhat better and getting rid of that lift, but with the concession of approval of the taller walls there. That is the kind of overview of building E. I can let Ross add in more when I wrap up. Building A, if you remember, there was a kind of a exterior parking area for cars in this area. With the removal of 2 units in building E on the west side, we've added what's kind of flat units, you know, the flats. So so each floor, there's 2 floors. Each floor is its own unit. We'll still have to kind of work through the floor plans on those units. But that's covering what was that, you know, pushing that garage entrance down closer to the main entrance of the building. Go into looking at some of the facades of how that will look there. We are maintaining that balcony feature. We've updated it a little bit. Tried to add some elements with some seating available, and the accessibility from the adjacent units, and if correct me if I'm wrong, Ross, but accessibility for generally the development would be an option as well. So we had some tall walls when this building hadn't been extended. We had some tall exposed walls that we were concerned with there, and those are now you know, within the structure. And a view from the patio porch. Kind of talked about the accessible path already, and then finally some of the clarification on the earthwork quantities. Previous numbers, there was some calculation error in the amount of fill that was removed in the garage. It wasn't enough added there, so we were closer to the 20%, which we were originally requesting as a safety factor. With the kind of additional regrading, that pushes us up to that percentage difference between cut and fill up to 37%, and would be asking for a little bit of safety factor to get up to 40%, which is a 365 cubic yard. We've tried to quantify the difference between, and we can go into that if the board's interested, quantify the difference between the grading, you know, required exterior to the site, that's, you know, changing the visual grade of the property, and the earthwork quantities that are, you know, essentially required for elements, you know, in ground, you know, not visible in grade change. The majority of the site is within 5 feet of the existing grade. I think 72% is what they calculated, which is 5 feet within the existing grade, and only 5% of the site will require changes of 10 or more feet into existing grade. So that summarizes, you know, my input. Jeremy or Ross, if you want to add on, or we can move on to questions from the board, or
Yeah, this is Jeremy. I can let Ross kind of elaborate if he wishes on the elevations and the new the updated visuals, but on the grading quantities, I guess you presented it, you know, what it is, Stephen. So I guess if the board has questions specific to that later on, you know, I'll answer those as they come up.
This is Ross. I don't have much to add other than that we were trying to meet the design criteria to lessen the impact of these elevations, and really, I'm here to answer questions if you have any that you want to ask about this. The biggest thing is pushing this building into the ground, the one that's seen from the street, building E, and it has improved the overall, I guess, presence of that building. I think you have one less story that's sitting there on the hill. So just ask away the questions, and we'll try to answer the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, Jeremy, and Ross. Michelle, do we have anyone for public comment?
There is still no attendees.
Okay, then we will close public comment and we will begin discussion pertaining to site design, primary walkways, and parking garages. Let's begin.
So I have a question on the walkway. You guys said if you get rid of the lift, there's going to be a 10-foot wall. How long would that wall be versus on grade of the path? Are we talking, 10 feet, 20 feet? How long would that section be if we got rid of the lift, if you got rid of the lift?
And just primarily, I think it would be from the corner off of the south corner of building E where it turns the corner right there, and halfway up that parking lot. So 60 feet or so.
And then that walkway then slopes down towards the Eagles, correct? After that?
Well, it would still ramp up from building E all the way through that walk with a series of ramps and landings all the way to the entry to building D. And then the south side of that walk, there would still be a wall. And then from there, it would daylight down to the Eagles.
What sort of vegetation do you have on the other side of that walk going down towards the Eagles?
Let's see, can you pull up the landscaping plans, Stephen?
Yeah, I don't have those queued up. I will get to them.
I really like the elevator in building E. I think that's a great idea to be able to get rid of a lot of this. I think that's an excellent idea. It's just a matter of what visibility is coming up on that wall, because otherwise it's going to be 6 feet or less, correct? If you have a lift in place.
Correct.
And I know Linda had asked in previous meetings, the lift that you guys were planning, was that a single person lift or one that could fit at least 2 people?
It was a 2 to 3 person.
Okay,
so it was more of a requirement of weight, not necessarily persons.
Okay. Because she was definitely concerned with somebody in a wheelchair that somebody else be able to fit in there to help them up type situation.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, for me, it really depends on what the landscaping would be for visibility. And it kind of comes down to safety too, in some ways. I mean, if you have a 10-foot wall buffered, I mean, is there going to be the lighting involved there to make it a safe path for people to go to or not?
Yeah, so I mean, good questions. I mean, obviously we'll have a pedestrian fall protection along that wall, along the whole run of that walk. There'll be lighting within that parking lot that is fairly well to grade with that walk for the majority of it. And we can definitely add pedestrian lighting if needed. But I believe from the building, between building D and E and the lights that would be required for those parking lots, it would be well lit.
So that's another kind of a weird question, but how often do you think this sort of a path would be used?
I honestly don't know. I don't.
So I'd probably rather see the lift in place still. I'm not a fan of walls. I know vegetation could screen it, but it's still obtrusive. I'd rather see a smaller wall and a lift in place than having a larger wall with no lift. Again, I have to defer to other board members on that, but smaller is better in my mind's eye.
So John, did you feel like you addressed any of those site design or the new parking garage configuration? Would you like to speak to any of that?
So the parking garage configuration, I definitely like it. I believe I missed one meeting. The first meeting you guys came to, that parking garage was wide open. In my mind's eye, it was quite a bit of an eyesore. It blends into the surrounding now. I do like that. For the grading, I did have one question. So we have site retention pond. That's going to be a covered pond, correct? For drainage?
It's not really a pond. It's more of just a detention facility. It's more of a, so it's a pipe that's got rock around it, but it is subsurface.
So in the past, we've had several where there's been a vault situation for that sort of drainage. And I believe we've allowed, if it's a covered pipe, that changes the percentage, if that makes sense. And I'm wondering if this would apply to that sort of an idea. Where
Right. I mean, it's generally the same concept as an underground vault. I mean, it's going to be subsurface. We're having to excavate that material and replace it with pipe for the void, and then drain rock for the hydraulic connectivity. So it's the same kind of design criteria we use for a vault.
So what percentage, if you were to take that area of ground out of the equation, where would you be?
Right. So again, I think Stephen alluded to it. We did run through another, I don't know if Steve wants to bring it up. So the first section of what you're looking at right there is basically what's on our current grading plan, which, you know, we account for the pavement section being removed and then replaced with the proper material, the excavation of the storm facility. But then, and then that's where we get to the 37% calculation as required by city policy. The second portion down there, if we take out the anything that's kind of not visual to the surface, like the pavement section, the storm facility, and even the cut required for the parking garage, which is kind of inset into the grade, we're at 12% of a change.
Cool. So many questions I had.
Thank you, John. Okay, Marlene or Nels?
Yeah, I think if you could pull up that, I think it's the view of that little bit of terrace walkway above the entrance to the parking garage. So
Sure,
with regards to, yeah, that was it. With regards to a parking garage, I really do appreciate pulling that building out towards the front. My worry is that little bit of the walkway in front of all those windows, are those windows communal space or are they units? If they're units, I would have concern about having just kind of more of a public access on level with people's windows.
And they are the units windows. There's no way to avoid that.
Okay. I guess maybe explain where that walkway is going to and from.
Well, the front to the back of the building, those two little poked out areas are set aside as a, I mean, if you show that, plan, or there's a stairs and backward in the back side and the forward side, and you could walk around and go up the building on the opposite side of this. In plan, you can see it there in the lower right. There's a yeah, that's that's the shape of it. One goes to the back side of the building and one goes to the front. And this drawing does not show access to anyone but who lives there. And that could be made that way, that this is just a big bonus space for the first level. But either way, it is a possibility that people would walk across that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's my only concern is that it is open to everyone. I would almost rather see it just be really, really amazing outdoor space for those units, unless there's some requirement for egress across or through it. But yeah, I think that's my only concern with that just my initial look at those kind of patio areas.
I have no objection to that myself. And we did have these kind of discussions during the development of this. We're trying to add interest and just like the design code says, you want some undulation and some interesting spaces. And so that's kind of how this evolved. So it would be easy to make this a private space versus a public space.
Yeah, no, and I'm all for keeping them. I think they help soften that what usually is a pretty utilitarian ingress egress of a parking garage. I really do appreciate them. I think I would just make a cognizant effort to just make them private for those units so that you just avoid any potential interaction of public versus private windows in those units. So.
Thank you, Nels. Would you like to address the pro-lift or anti-lift conversation?
Yeah, as much as I know that having lifts out in the weather, especially here, is kind of, I mean, it is problematic. I mean, we just look at, any of the ones that are in the public settings and they do go down. I'm in favor with John that even though it is not, I'm in favor of the lift just to keep those walls low. Or not there at all. So just because of how skinny of a land area it is between the south side of those buildings and then the south property, the Eagles. So I'm in favor of the lifts.
Thank you, Nels. Is there anything else you'd like to address?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Marlene, you're up.
Could I see the elevations of building E, please? Oh. Can you scroll down to that last one that shows the elevator side? So are we still looking at, even with 3 stories, are we still looking at it coming out of the ground like another story?
From that lower floor.
Yeah.
From the lower floor down to existing grade, it's still like, I think 8 feet or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of grade change across.
There is a lot of grade change. So, wow. Okay, let's go back to the elevations. Wow. And there's really nothing better to be done with those spaces other than that big retaining wall. I mean, it's one floor of just, again, that I think that was our original comment, was that this is the one that you're seeing from the street, and it's really, when we talk about a balanced site, it's still really sticking out of the landscaping by that. How far did you say it was between like the ground floor on that, what you're calling the rear elevation west, and what you're calling the rear elevation is what's facing Burnham. So it's the rear elevation to your parking lot, but it's not the rear elevation to the street. So that's like 8 feet from the finished grade to where your units actually start.
That is correct.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm gonna say I'm not in love with that. So, okay, skipping over to the question of the lift, could we see a site plan that shows going from the building E to kind of that building D in the center area, showing that walkway that requires the 10-foot wall? And then can I see what the alternate is on a site plan showing that lift? Because I'm not sure, you're showing me one site plan. I'm not, I want to see two alternatives.
So this is the alternative walk. So this is with
Okay.
no lift, and you have your wall elevations, your top and bottom.
Okay, so where's the one that shows, that shows that eliminated and shows the lift?
So then your only real changes are the grading through this area.
Okay, so you still have a walkway there, but it's got a steeper grade, so it's not handicapped accessible, but it's still it's a walkway.
Well, we're making up the grade with.
Oh, I see. So the lift is actually, sorry, I gotta move part of my screen here. So the lift is, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So the lift is at the end there where you have the words extended foundation, and that's a 5-foot lift?
It's actually a 3-foot lift.
3-foot lift, uh-huh. Yeah, that's a pain in the neck. Yeah, I mean, I don't love the big wall either, but I actually think that the lift is worse. I also, you're sending your accessible path still to the back of the site. Okay. And then I'm going to agree with Nell's comment about and the other comments. I think that putting those units closer to the entry of the garage, and then with the balcony over it, the walkway over it, does help soften that up, and the entrance, and that all looks better to my eye. And I think it's going to function better. And I'm going to agree with Nell's that doesn't really work as a public walkway with the way that the units next to it are configured. So my feeling is that it's probably going to, because the people in the units are going to feel like they always have to have their shades drawn. And it's possible the public is going to feel like, well, I don't want to use this because I'm hanging outside somebody's bedroom. So you might be better off just making that private space for those units rather than making it a pass through. And I think I agree that I'd be okay with that. So that's all I.
Thank you, Marlene. Before we get into making motions here, I'm just going to ask him, since this thing came up about the privacy patio, how would you like that worded?
I think that we could easily, if the board was willing to be able to make a motion on this item tonight, that we could easily go about it in a provisional manner. But the board agrees that it is consistent with the criteria for approval, provided that the applicant, create some sort of privacy in that outdoor area outside of the units in building A.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm gonna, I just want to check with John and Nell, since Marlene brought up that elevation of building E. Was there any comments or anything that you hadn't seen that before? So I want to make sure you're cool with that.
Well, with respect to that concrete wall to, get up to the first floor, I think the landscaping plan can do a ton with screening that somewhat. Especially because there is that big, opportunity between that and the street to buffer it or obscure it a little bit. But I mean, there's not much you can do to alleviate that.
Yeah, I agree with Reynolds on that one. Landscape will be key.
Can we see the landscape area of that, what's going on in front of building E?
So the landscape plan hasn't been updated to the facade of that building. So what's being shown is the land the architect's rendering.
So I suppose my question is going to be, could we approve this subject to landscaping that will soften that edge? And I guess for me, I would be willing to let that be an administrative decision if we could do that.
Kim, how's that sound?
I think it sounds really workable, Chair. I'll remind the board that the landscaping requirements, particularly against this facade of building E, are extremely stringent. Based on our design manual, there is there's the standard perimeter landscaping requirements, and then there's the enhancement corridor design manual or landscaping requirements coming off of Burnham Drive, and then there is the zone transition requirements that apply on this on the Burnham Drive frontage, and that requires a 40-foot dense vegetative buffer. There is no mechanism in the design manual or the municipal code that will require more dense vegetation than what is required of a zone transition buffer, which the applicant is not proposing an alternative to. And so that will require the tallest trees, the largest shrubs, 5-gallon shrubs, 12-foot trees, and densely planted in an offset manner. And so I think that I feel very assured that administratively that could be reviewed by staff and ensure a quality product.
Thank you, Kim. Marlene, does that help?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that we want to, well, for me, I guess I am willing to approve this as a balanced site, again, subject to the landscaping plan softening the edge on building E.
Oh, that sounded so close to a motion.
Okay, but I don't remember what the wording was of what alternative we are.
I'll give you a moment to look at the staff report.
Oh, I don't know if I could, with my vision, I don't know if I could find it that fast. There's so many staff reports.
Kim, you want each one dealt with separately, site, primary, and parking? Or do you want us to group them?
Either or, if there's provisional language, it's probably easier separate.
Okay, it sounds like there is. Let's go for separate.
What exhibit am I looking at for your most recent staff report?
I think it's D.
D.
It's actually not an exhibit at all. It's just a standalone supplemental staff report that contains with it all the exhibits.
What's your date on that? Do you know?
It is dated the 15th of July.
Nope, sorry.
Perhaps Marlene, you would like it if I could read it and you could decide
Yeah,
whether you'd like
there
to
you
just
go.
incorporate what I read in.
Awesome.
The DRB finds that the proposed design alternative to 1799-240C meets the intent of the general requirements of the provision, provided the site is graded consistent with the applicant's design proposal as follows. Cut 14,315 cubic yards of material and fill 8,735 cubic yards of fill material, representing a 40% difference in grading quantities.
Okay, and do we need to amend that about the landscaping, Or can we just, are we comfortable that there's a stringent enough landscaping requirement already that's in place?
There exists no more stringent requirement than what they have to design against.
Sorry, I would like to make a motion of what staff member Kimberly Mahoney just read.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, John. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. That was on site design. So now we have 2 more primary walkways and parking garages. Do I have a motion? Oh, wait, I see Kim.
Yeah, the primary walkway item is not up for discussion tonight. It was actually, a motion was made at the June 10th meeting related to the primary walkway, because the only item related to the primary walkway, remember the primary walkway is actually the one that's adjacent to the access way, and the only thing was that 5 foot of landscaping adjacent to it. So that
Okay.
was discussed at the June 10th meeting.
So you just need parking garage then?
Correct.
Okay, well, thanks. You got one more. I think Nels, you'd be great at this one because you brought up some points.
Well, Kim, can you iterate again what they're seeking or what they're asking?
Absolutely. For parking garages that serve more than 20 vehicles, they have to receive a recommendation by the design review board. And the design review board is, required to consider certain elements. Let me just read it directly. Let me get there in the code for you. Required to consider certain elements in its determination. In making its determination of compliance, the DRB shall consider the design criteria under subsections B1 and B2 of the section, may also determine how much screening or architectural embellishment is required based upon projected lines of sight from the pedestrian's perspective. Now, B1 and B2 discuss a landscaping screen. Screening may be trees and shrubs with climbing plantings on a trellis. And 2 is storefronts, so it's inapplicable in this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I would make a motion that what the applicant has presented meets or exceeds the design manual, with the caveat being that the patio areas are developed as a private unit patios rather than public.
Thank you, Nels.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Marlene. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, is that,
I guess the last one is to discuss whether we would allow the 10-foot retaining wall instead of having the lift. So that's
which one does that fall underneath? I thought that was under primary
I
walkways.
think it falls under retaining walls over 6 feet.
240C.
240C, I'm flipping through.
That's the maintaining of natural topography. That
Okay.
discusses the balance of natural topography from a grading perspective, and it also discusses walls in excess of 6 feet. So any proposal for walls in excess of 6 feet requires an alternative of 240C.
And, and I realize the 10-foot wall is not ideal. Again, we ask landscaping to do a lot in terms of softening how that looks from the adjacent property. But it does avoid the problem of having somebody go through that whole long path only to get to the end of it and find that the last 3 feet don't work.
I hear ya. So this big 10-foot wall, it's behind the Eagles. They're not their primary facade, correct?
Yes, they're kind of down in our survey doesn't extend down that far, but you can kind of see how there's kind of a bluff here. It kind of flattens up at the top, and I believe what's kind of at the toe of the slope is where they have their like guest parking for their RVs. And so they are kind of set back away from it. It does climb up a slope here, and then levels up, and then we're kind of then sitting up above that, so that the sites just kind of keep climbing up the hill. I'd imagine that the Eagle site was maybe a mass excavation at one point.
So typically when we look at the option of retaining walls this high, we step them or do something to help if that's the way we go, but it does not sound or look like you have enough room to do that, is there?
No, not without pushing in. I'll let Jeremy chime in.
No, we don't have enough room to do that.
So Marlene, I don't know, are you familiar with that property, the one neighboring?
I've been on the Eagles property. I don't know if I don't think I've ever been on that side of the building. You know, we could, I don't know, maybe we want to pull it up on Google Maps and just see what we're dealing with.
Well, I will say from my, recollection, between that RV parking and the property line, it does drop down, but it is vegetated. There's quite a trees and shrubs all through there. So there is a existing visual buffer already there.
So the odd part on the wall for me, it's not necessarily for the view of it. It's more for safety. I mean, a 10-foot wall versus a 6-foot wall, you're walking in a little chamber. I know Gig Harbor is a safe area, but if you're walking on a side of a property stuck between vegetation and a 10-foot wall, there's, sounds weird, no means of escape if you had an issue going on. Where a 6-foot wall would be better lit and more visible, and in my mind's eye, a little bit safer.
Well,
John,
if you're in a wheelchair, you're not getting out of there either way, whether you can climb a 6-foot wall or not.
Oh, that's totally true. But you also think that some of the people might be people with strollers too. I mean, there's a whole bunch of options besides just people in a wheelchair.
That's true. You could throw the baby over the wall. I'm just kidding. Okay, this is better to see it. Go, Marlene.
I was going to say that John has seen too many action movies.
So Kim, could you speak to how much of those trees will be retained? Do you know that property line at all?
I don't know where the property line falls here. Let me pull up the city's GIS instead. Take a look that way.
Do I need to stop sharing?
Probably, Michelle. I always rely on Michelle. Oh my goodness. Listen to what I'm telling you to do. What did I just do?
We don't see your screen, so you don't have to freak out. We can't see it yet.
I'm just glad I'm still connected. The screen just.
Tim, I can pull up the tree retention from the landscape architect's plans, and we can see.
Well, but that probably doesn't cover the Eagles.
Yeah, you would be harder to see how it relates.
Do you know how many feet it is from approximately from where they've removed trees to where their property line is?
For the Burnham Drive apartment site?
Oh, for the Eagles site. So just we're looking at sort of an edge of trees against RV parking.
Right. Let me, I think I've almost got our GIS pulled back up. So let me just get into the site. That'll allow me to take a pretty accurate measurement. Okay. Okay, so here's the Eagles, the back part of the Eagles, where they got some RV parking going on here. And it looks like, I don't know. Somewhere between 30 and 40 feet.
Is that a buffer they're required to keep?
I would really need to look into the history of the site to better inform you about that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that strongly about it, but I am inclined to want to allow the taller retaining wall if it eliminates that last lift.
Thank you, Marlene. I'd like to open it back up to John and Nels since they've had new information.
Yeah, I still disagree. I'd like to see the lift just for safety. Otherwise, at the end of the parking lot, you have a 10-foot drop versus 6-foot drop, even if you have railing. Maintenance of a lift is something that the development should be doing. I mean, I'd rather see a lift versus a wall.
Thank you, John. Nels, do you remain with the same point of view?
Well, Marlene brings up some, I mean, amazing points that it is just this amazing, just kind of weird thing at the end of a long line, and then it's only going up 3 feet. So it's almost comical. I mean, it goes up to your waist. So I don't know. I tend to kind of reverse what I was thinking in the fact that it is only a 3-foot lift. So I think I'm okay getting rid of the lift. It's a bugger that it's 10-foot walls that aren't, staircased or stepped back. But it's one of those things where it's a pickle each way. So I'm going to go with Marlene. So I think, what do you think, Brett? What's your feel for it?
Yeah, I agree. It is a pickle. And I was thinking the same thing Marlene was thinking before she said it. You're going to go up all this way to get to this lift. It's a long way to go.
And it's only a 3-foot lift. It's not even going up a full floor. And so it's a conundrum. So
yeah, I would lean towards no lift, honestly, but 10-foot walls are steep without any kind of stepping down of them.
Yeah. I mean, we have some precedents of those kind of walls in sites in this area up on Burnham with Home Depot and Costco. So we have done them. It's just, I think it has to be a pretty special case to allow them. And I think in this case, when the alternative is a 3-foot lift, it at the end of that long kind of corridor, man, I'd be tending to get rid of the lift then. So.
Okay, thank you. I wish more of our DRB members were here tonight to weigh in on this, honestly. It's a tight call. I'm gonna lean towards no lift also. It's hard to make those decisions when you have no one speaking from the Eagles too on the other side to say anything, but it sounds like a 40-foot buffer, if that's what stands, is pretty decent over there on that side of the property. I guess we need a motion to make a full discussion about it.
Okay, I will make a motion that in the case of the accessible walkway as presented tonight, we allow a 10-foot retaining wall on the southern edge of the property to allow for the accessible route to eliminate a chairlift.
Okay. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Nels. I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, I'm opposed still.
I understand, John. Thank you.
Yep.
I believe the motion still passes. Okay.
Can I ask for a point of clarity, and I might
Yes.
need to, I might need to lean on the applicant. The motion specified a 10-foot retaining wall, and I believe that the tallest portion of that wall is actually just in excess of that at about 10.3 or 10.4 feet. I might ask for the applicant to clarify that, but if
That is correct, Kimberly. Yep.
perhaps the motion could reflect that if that's amenable to the DRB.
Marlene, you made the motion. Is that okay?
Yes. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Nels, you okay with that second?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay. I will say, I think this project's come a long way since the first time we've seen it. And I hope that the project team feels like it's to the benefit of the project because it looks a lot better. Ross.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I appreciate giving us the time to display this in a way that is amenable to the codes and to the review committee.
Okay, well, thank you. You guys are good to go.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you for your
much.
time.
Okay, as far as board business, I know I'm on the naughty list because I still haven't done my open meetings. I've had a heck of a couple weeks. I'm actually moving to Tacoma, so I'm sorry about that. I will still do it if am I out of time, Michelle, or can I still do it on my own?
Katrina hasn't made a determination, and there's only both two of you need it, and you're the only one here, so I think we can hold that till another time.
It was Darren and I, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least I'm not alone on the naughty list. That's good.
I want to ask if we're going to go back to meeting in person because I hear the Civic Center is opening.
We are opening to the public beginning on Monday.
And I heard that the city council meeting will be in person.
Perhaps, although I did just speak with Katrina today and understand that the hearing examiner will still be held virtually. So I don't know where that pegs the DRB. I can ask that question. I can get you a response Monday.
Okay. Well, I've been doing, other groups that have been meeting have been doing sort of hybrid meetings so that people who are uncomfortable coming in have the option of not coming in. I'm going to suggest that I would like that. And I am comfortable coming in, and I think that I'm a little bit more effective when I come in. And I'll tell you right now, outside my windows, I've got people cutting shrubs. I've got children playing outside, which is all delightful, but it's not the best for me.
Distracting.
I will say that the nice thing about these meetings is that people tend to not talk over each other because you have to unmute and mute yourself, and that's been lovely.
But no eye contact. So,
I hear ya. Well, I guess, is there any other business for tonight then? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
ooh, I'm there. Motion to adjourn.
What do we have for our next meeting, Kim?
There's currently no scheduled projects.
Okay, I am gone personally from August 10th until the 24th. So just an FYI, I will not have email access during that time.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I'm
you
also
enjoy
on
that.
vacation from the 17th to the 25th. I won't be in town in August.
I'm going to be gone towards the end of August, beginning of September.
Okay, wow. Well, you all just enjoy your vacations. We'll be here, but we won't be planning any DRB.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll second the motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.